Welcome to this webinar, a very interesting session. And today I have a very good friend. He's my student with the RMP, and he also did PgMP, Elijah. And welcome, Elijah.
Dharam, thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to work with you.
We have lots of questions, and we're going to talk a lot about risk, how to make risk-aware leaders delivering the results. That's what we're going to do today. And I'd like to welcome all of you joining again and again to learn from these webinars and also gaining something useful and gaining some PDUs. So I do have a PDU to offer, which I will share as part of the email which you get as a registered user. So yeah, if you don't see that, if you're watching the video, then you probably have to let us know, hey, I watched the video. Can you share the video? All right. If you do not know about me, so a little bit about myself. I have been teaching project program, portfolio managers, risk managers, specialists in AI and Agile and Six Sigma and many others. And so I'm fortunate to have contributed to almost actually 620 PgMPs. This is roughly around 9,000 global, and the PfMP wise, the 219 PfMP out of roughly 3,000 PfMPs. And this is actually 7% of global PgMPs and PfMPs. So I'm proud of each of them, including Eli. He has done PgMP through me. Actually, he came to me for RMP. And then, okay, I got my RMP done. Let me do my PgMP. So he completed the PgMP as well. So thank you for helping me to maintain increasing the numbers.
Thank you for your mentorship. It was a huge help to me.
Yeah. And other thing is, as we speak today, I'm going through the PfMP program. So a couple of people joining this session. So welcome, guys. And I will see you again very soon in my class. So I'm very privileged to able to help so many people, professionals around the world. So while PfMP program happening this weekend, and I'm starting a PMP program, actually 4 days program, physical program in Dallas. And then PgMP next weekend, RMP. Okay, about Eli, he's a PMP, he's PgMP now. He completed PgMP on 5th of June. The RMP, he did it in 23rd of March. And PMP and ACP.
Yeah, ACP as well.
Yeah. So you're coming with strong background, risk-aware leadership, governance, cybersecurity, compliance, complex project management.
I think you pretty much covered it. The only thing that I would add was that right now I'm a service delivery manager on an enterprise cybersecurity program. So right now I'm between what the customer needs and what we can commit to. And before that, I had a special operations background. And that's a lot of what shaped how I look at uncertainty and how I look at risk today. So yeah.
Thank you once again for accepting this invite and get ready for this session.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
So what we're going to talk today, these are some of the questions in summary. And you take a screenshot just to make you aware. So we do have a couple of audience questions. And if you do provide me question on the note Q&A question pad, happy to have them as and when right time. And do it in the chat. Try to keep the question on the question answer. That will help me to know, keep one place. But yeah, this is it. And there's some ground rules. Yes, put the question back. Feel free to chat, share your LinkedIn profile, whatever can help you to interact with others. Okay. Let me start my first question. Many leaders treat uncertainty and risk as same thing. What's the difference between these two, and why does understanding that distinction matter for making better decisions?
So risk is something that you can name, and uncertainty is the part you can't name yet. If I can describe an event, how likely it is and what it costs, that's a risk that I can act on. I can reduce it, I can transfer it, I can accept it, or I can simply walk away. Uncertainty is when you don't know what the event is. It's also called an unknown through PMI standards. So the difference between the two matters because they're handled very differently. Risk require your contingency reserves, and that's where every single dollar is tied to a specific risk, where uncertainty taps into your management reserves, which is typically sponsor controlled, and that's allocated towards the items you can't forecast and you didn't see coming. From a leadership perspective, I think most leaders tend to do one of two things if they can't tell the difference between an uncertainty and a risk. They tend to treat everything as an uncertainty and freeze and not make decisions, or they treat everything as a risk and put numbers on things that they don't actually understand. So to me, what matters is converting uncertainty into named risk with owners, because once it has a name and an owner, you're able to manage that risk accordingly. Does that answer your question?
So once we know this uncertainty,
Yeah.
so okay, this is uncertainty. Okay, this is our risk. You identify the risk. It can be positive or negative. Uncertainty can be positive, negative. And we identify the risk. You prioritize according to the impact and probability, and then you have a mitigation plan. If it is high risk, high or medium risk, likely to have a response plan, and you apply for it. So when the future is unclear and information is incomplete, what distinguishes exceptional leaders from those who simply react to the event?
Okay. So I think what makes them stand out is that they name the uncertainty that's going on and they highlight what would make them change their mind. The failure mode that I've seen in leaders, and I've made this mistake early on, is trying to stall for more information or picking a direction and sticking to it, even though the evidence tells you to go in a different direction. So to avoid that, I like to name the decision and name what I'm assuming out loud so that everyone in the room can hear it. And then letting them know, hey, if we meet this criteria, this is what will cause me to change my mind and go back on this decision. So you're still pushing with your initial thoughts, you're still pushing with your initial decision, but you're putting a tripwire on it. And the tripwire is the people that are working around you. So now when a potential risk is going to surface, everyone around you knows what is important to you and what they need to bring to your attention. Does that make sense?
So the question is saying the future, when the future is unclear with a lot of uncertainty, information is incomplete, the difference between exceptional leader and from ordinary project managers or leader is you have foresight. You can see things what is about to happen, what is about to, and be ready for it. One is there are project managers I've seen, they just do the risk management or risk identification just to tick the boxes to satisfy the audit requirement. Or some of the stakeholders, some of the project manager program leaders really pay attention and work and find all the possible risks in advance. And with this process, you also identify what we will do. Because one is, okay, identified, great. But do we have a plan to meet with them? If this happens, do we have a mitigation plan? Do we have a contingency plan? Do we have plan B? And all these things we have to think of.
Absolutely. I agree with that.
Yeah. So we have another question. Let me bring it here. Managing stakeholder expectations could be challenging.
Can be, as long as requirements don't change once more. So the goal with uncertainty is to identify what you do know and most importantly, what can't fail. And once you have that, you can get into, hey, these are the risks associated with this project and this program. And I think the important thing to highlight is that it can change at any moment, right? And you have to be adaptable to say, hey, we were certain about this specific project and its requirements. The customer has completely changed it now, and now we're back in uncertainty, and just remaining flexible as that happens.
Let me go to the next question. So organizations often have risk register governance process, yet teams still hesitate to raise concerns. How can a leader build a culture where people proactively identify and communicate risk?
Yeah, so I've built it by changing what happens to people when a risk or an issue is surfaced. From my perspective, people respond to both negative and positive pressures.
Okay.
So if reporting a risk means more scrutiny, more work, or looking like the problem, nobody's going to want to raise anything, no matter what the policy or your training modules say. So as a leader, my job is to look at my environment, assess what my environment currently rewards and to adjust to those pressures so that surfacing a problem early is the thing that gets rewarded. And I can give you an example if you'd like, or we can keep moving.
Please
Just
go
let
ahead.
me know. Yeah. So I was 2 days into a PM role and I was in a meeting and my operations manager said that the customer requirements were changing. The room got completely quiet. I've heard a lot of things about the PM before me, but I didn't want to make any assumptions. A few people got wide-eyed. They seemed really worried. And I asked him essentially one question, like, how sure are you that the requirements are changing? And he told me he'd spoken to the customer directly. So I said, at some point this week, let's sit down, assess what it impacts and how we respond. And then I told the rest of the room, like, hey, you guys are welcome to join. I asked him to put it on a calendar and I thanked him in front of everybody. So the part that's important is that after that, everyone had something to bring up. There wasn't a single person in that room that didn't have something to say. So we had to split those into separate meetings over the next week. And to me, what was also important was that nothing had changed in our policy. I think what changed was that they saw what happened to the person who raised the risk and the concern. So yeah, that's my example. Thank you.
Yeah. I think this is a good thing to happen. Organization should be rewarding and encouraging as many risks you can identify as early as possible so we are prepared. Think about you planning a holiday and working with your kids, with your partners, and somebody think, what about the flight? You submit the flight, and should I raise the concern or risk? And I keep quiet. So if somebody goes, oh, this is a great point, and appreciate that and reward that person, I like to see more and more risk that you've identified. And more importantly, not only identifying, and you have a plan to mitigate. And when somebody has mitigated the risk, if risk happen, and you mitigate it effectively, efficiently, I think that these kind of things deserve a pat on the back. Definitely. So we all should be creating that environment. Now, okay, let me take you to the next question. So leaders frequently need to make critical decisions with the limited data and tight deadlines. What framework or principle can help them to make confident decisions while effectively managing risk?
I think one principle that's important to highlight is when to stop asking for more information. You essentially change the question from, hey, is there more information out there, to what can I afford to be wrong about? And if you're able to assess that being wrong is still something the organization can absorb, then you can make that decision and just move on. If you assess that being wrong could take the program down, that's where you want to spend more time and money buying down the unknown, right? For me, confident decisions come from assessing how bad things can be if you're wrong and prioritizing what could cause the most damage. And that's something important that I think that leaders should follow.
Yeah. Especially when you have limited data, because risk is based on what happened in the past. And risk identification, okay, if that happened sometime back, it can happen again. And are we ready for that? But more and more data you can collect. If you don't have data, then you may have to use FME's feedback, somebody who understands that environment, somebody who has worked in that environment. So they are the people who can give you the right, identification. And of course, we are all working in the tight deadlines, especially when you're working with business or the client. They expect everything to be done yesterday. It's our responsibility as a project manager, program manager to make sure they're also aware that this is important to do proper risk management. And nobody wants to pay for the risk management. So your job, but you need to highlight the importance of risk management, why we're doing, and make sure that you identify the risk, keep them informed, especially the critical risk, positive and negative, and using the risk manager principles, whatever PMI has established or whatever other risk management principles are available, use them. And make sure this is important for us to follow the right way, right structure of identification, risk identification.
I also think it's important to highlight that while you're using those SMEs and that research to describe that risk based on what's already happened, it's important to highlight where that data came from. So that way you're clearly articulating, hey, this is based on industry data. Hey, this is based on subject matter experts. and you label that cleanly and plainly so that people understand exactly where information came from.
Exactly. So yeah, source of data is very important. And that should be part of when you identify the risk, you should have the information, the source of data. Who brought this information? From where we got this information? So somebody can challenge you, hey, I don't think the risk. And what is the basis of your risk? And when you are supporting information and data or some statistics that can help you to explain. My solution to address the risk is to develop a roadmap and likelihood.
So I think whenever you're making a decision, there's typically a risk and an opportunity within that same decision. I think that if you're confident in your decision to develop that roadmap, I do think that that gives you a clear understanding of the decision that you're making, and you can backtrack that decision if it works out and if it doesn't work out. So I do think that you're going in the right direction with developing that roadmap with likelihoods. I would also take it a step further and look at the potential impact of both.
All right, so let's go to the question number 5, I think. Yeah. And feel free to elaborate on this if you want to. Risk management is often viewed as a compliance exercise. How can organizations shift their mindset so that effective risk management becomes a driver of innovation, resilience, and business value?
I think organizations can turn risk management into a competitive advantage by essentially using it to move faster. From my perspective, as a leader, you can only say yes quickly when you know where the tolerance and the appetite are. I think most programs bring risk in at the end to bless off on a decision that was already made, which kind of turns risk management into a brake on a car, right? And that's typically when risk management is brought up. I like to use it as a visibility tool. If I understand the exposure before we move forward with a decision, and I understand the environment that I'm operating in, I can commit to things at a much more rapid pace than a more cautious leader. And that's because that cautious leader is still figuring out what their left and right limits are. So I think risk management, a lot of people look at it as a tool to avoid risk. And I think it should be used as a tool to commit early, but knowing which risks actually matter and which ones are worth committing to.
Yeah. Compliance, definitely you have to, certify them compliance requirement, audit requirements, whatever. But that's not, or that should not be the only criteria for doing this. You are doing risk management because you want to be ready for some uncertain events. And if this happens, you have required tools, required contingency, and whatever we need for handling that. Okay. If you're entering into a big jungle with lots of wild animals and different kind of conditions, it's not just because we're going in jungle, we satisfy all this. It's because we're going to be ready for a situation like in anything. If we see a wild animal, tiger or a lion jumping on you, what are you going to do? But ticking the box is not enough. You have to have some kind of protection. If you don't have anything, you can't do much because you do not do enough management. Now you are in a situation you don't know what to do.
I think the example that you gave was really good because you just took risk management and you put it in the jungle. And I think that a lot of people don't think about risk management in that way. Risk management, governance, risk, and compliance are all supposed to be spread throughout the organization across multiple functions. They're not just siloed to risk management and compliance, and that's all it is. Risk management touches multiple facets of the organization, and people need to treat it that way. And that's why I really liked your jungle example, because I did not expect it.
Security, cybersecurity, one of the biggest risks at the moment for any industry, any organization. If somebody tap into your organization, think about the disaster you can have. And you have seen that somebody hacked everything, and now they're demanding the big money and so on. So, yeah, it's not just compliant. Okay, we check. No, do we have a plan? If this happens, what are we going to do with this? That will help you to be prepared, safeguard your business, or maybe taking some steps. Innovation. I mean, we talk about driver of innovation. Sometimes we have to risk averse. Hey, we don't want to take risks, and then we miss out some of the opportunities. So yeah, taking this. All right. Okay, let me walk to the next question. So as technology, AI, cybersecurity, cyber threats, and global disruption continue to evolve, what capabilities should today's project and business leaders develop to successfully lead to uncertainty over next decade?
I think the one that I try to work the hardest on is saying what I don't know without losing the room. Anyone can deliver a confident plan, but when you try to tell a customer, a board, or even your own team, hey, here's the part that I'm unsure about, here's when I'll know more, and being able to still hold their confidence, I think that that's a harder version of articulating a plan. So I care about that skill the most because it's the only way bad news can surface throughout the organization while it's still inexpensive. If my team doesn't see me handle uncertainty out loud, they'll sit on risk and issues and that'll cascade. And I think over the next decade, this is going to stop being a soft skill, especially with AI, cyber, third party risk in the supply chain. I think the honest position on most of it is that we have a view on what's going on, but we don't have proof of the intricacies of it and where it's going.
So as a business leaders, project managers, program managers, you have to look beyond, you know, that's where we can use some technology. I think the AI-based systems we are getting nowadays, which can help you, like ChatGPT or some other, you can ask the right question. Of course, you have to be careful about what you want to put in the public arena. Like I see the ChatGPT, anybody can see your information. Be careful about that. But this can give you a lot of information in advance because you human can think a lot, but your ChatGPT or cloud can give you a lot more information and which can make your project program more safer or organization more safer. So use this technology and whatever can help
I think it's important to highlight that it has to be used in a safe way. And, you have to go in and verify what it's pulling out for you. It can analyze a ton of data, but if you don't understand the limits of it, then you're putting your organization under unnecessary risk. So it's that balance of, hey, this tool is great, but also let me make sure that the resources that it's giving me to quote for a briefing or whatever it is, let me make sure that they're accurate and let me make sure that this is what I'm intending to articulate. Just a thought.
No, definitely, because ChatGPT or this GI, they're great tools. At the same time, information is not always true. They can give you a lot of information in a very fraction of a second, but that can be coming from somebody's paper written by somebody XYZ 5 years ago, which may be it was okay at the time, but not anymore. So you need to verify whether the data you're getting is really accurate or not. It looks great. You've got a beautiful presentation, but is this number we getting 91% of these, 47% of these, is it accurate? Of course, you can counter question ChatGPT and you can ask other system together. You can use, sometimes I use ChatGPT, Cloud, and what three to make sure that I'm getting the right. It's always different, but I can now make my own decision. So I think use it. The tools are great, but use it effectively, efficiently. It's like any tool. If you think about, or let's say anything we have in life, like the fire. The fire is great for cooking food. And especially winter time, and there's snow everywhere, fire is great. But fire can be very damaging if this, you say, either bushfire or something happen in the house. So knowing how to handle this part of this management. If this happen, what do we do? Wildfire happens.
I'm really loving the jungle analogies today. I think I'm ready to get out there.
I do have a question, the question in the chat. Cybersecurity, when it comes to risk, the level of discussion as it can take time, balance, the uncertainty. Okay, it's not a question, just a comment. Anything you like to add on this?
No, I don't have anything to add.
Yeah, perfect. All right, so let me bring my last question. So can you share a real world example where proactive risk leadership transformed a potentially failing initiative into a successful outcome? What were the key lessons that other leaders can apply in their organization?
I've been advising a nonprofit for about 5 years now, and they were putting on a fundraising event, and they had already ran a raffle in person, and they wanted to take it online for obvious opportunities, right? More people, more engagement, more fundraising capital. And the prize for the fundraiser was highly regulated. So that's two different regulations going on at once. One is the raffle law, and the other is the regulated prize. They're regulated by different people in different ways, and everything varies from state to state. So the first thing that I did was I wrote down everything that we didn't know. A part of that list included which states allow online raffle participation, what permits or registrations we needed, whether payment processors would allow a raffle tied to a regulated firearm, and whether a raffle platform could restrict participation by location. Additionally, what marketing restrictions applied across social medias. Up until this point, none of those questions were risks. I can't score any of them. I don't know the likelihood and I don't know the impact. And that was the uncertainty that I spoke to the CEO about. The first step of that wasn't to manage risk. It was to turn those 5 unknowns into things that we could name and assign owners to. And that meant calling legal counsel, reading the state's process, and asking the platform and payment processor direct questions in writing. Once we did that, we had 15 name risks. I wrote every single one of them the same way. They each had a cause, an event, and an impact. And we didn't want the risk statement to be vague so that if somebody else saw our register, it could clearly articulate the information needed in order to make an informed decision. So, as an example, we had one legal risk, which was risk 1, and it read as the online raffle spans multiple states. Therefore, it violates state raffle laws. Therefore, there's legal exposure to the organization. And so now I have the likelihood, the impact, and then the legal counsel was assigned as the owner. Now that we have kind of that framing in mind, I'm going to go completely through one of our largest risks, which was the regulated item. And that was risk 7. So this risk was that the identity was not tied across the life cycle of the raffle, which means that one person could buy a ticket. That person could use, we'll say, their wife's debit card, and then hand off that prize to, let's say, their brother. And that's a completely innocent thing, right? Hey, I won this prize. I use my wife's credit card. She doesn't have a problem with it, and I want to give it to my brother. But for us, that meant that we were facing a legal problem, a payment problem, and those two things converged as an identity problem. And that's exactly where the risk register helped. We had 3 legal risks, essentially: multi-state exposure, tickets sold into restricted jurisdictions, permits that weren't obtained, and everything scored as critical. So we decided to avoid it, and we ended up not doing the raffle online. And the CEO basically looked at all of those risks, said the risk isn't worth the opportunity, and so we're going to cancel it. To go back to Guy's question, the way that I avoided being the guy in the room that says, hey, we shouldn't do this raffle at all, it's a terrible idea, look at all of these risks, was by also providing the opportunity register. So I built both of those simultaneously. And for every decision that needed to be made, I said, hey, here's the risks, which are all of the things that I named, and here are the opportunities. So opportunity 1 was expanding to get online participation, a larger audience reach, significantly increased revenue. The likelihood was high, the impact was high, and the priority was critical. And so when you compare that to risk 1, the online raffle spanned multiple states, violated raffle laws, likelihood was high, impact was high, and the priority was critical. So they're both the same decision, and they were both ultimately the CEO's decision. And when you present those 2 columns, you're no longer the guy that's just killing ideas for the sake of killing ideas. You're offering them an informed decision that they can make that'll save your organization.
Yeah, no, that's a very good example where you have risk and that converted and also opportunities together. Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking of risk, like, risk of failing exam. If that can have, okay, what if I fail the exam? And some people put this, okay, it's too difficult, PgMP, PfMP, RMP, the difficult exam. I don't put my money in. But this can be avoided by taking proper mitigations, by talking to the right person. Hey, is it really a risk? What is the risk involved? And how can I mitigate? You have to weigh the cost benefit ratio and all those things by spending money with Dharam or whoever. Is it worth spending the time and money with anybody? Hopefully, by talking or taking the proactive action, that risk can be mitigated, or not risk, but spending, and you have better results. That's what I can think.
I think if you're going to work with Dharam on any of those, there's not much of a risk other than you need time to study.
To study, of course. All right, good. So thank you for this, and let me take you through our video audience question. Yeah. So what are some AI risks in uncertain world?
Man, this is a mouthful. I think what most people are calling AI risk isn't actually risk. I think it's uncertainty. We can't really describe the event and we can't put a likelihood or impact on it because AI continues to evolve and change. Kind of like the stakeholder and leadership analogy that we had earlier, where if things are constantly changing, it's hard to plan risk against that. And now we're in a state of uncertainty. And I think the things that we can name are mostly the risks we already know. For example, you have shadow IT, where people are using tools and hardware that is not approved for your organization. The same thing is happening with AI. We've seen the risk before, it just has a different name to it. So, from my perspective, I think those are some of the things that are important to highlight when it comes to AI risk.
Yeah, and having right governance is very important, And as we talked about, you're using ChatGPT, Cloud, or any other thing, if you start putting your organization information some places, and somebody may be watching, who knows? You never know what is happening behind the scenes. And they're getting their company information. You have to have boundaries, governance, restrict governance, what can be shared, what can't be shared, and who you can share. Maybe you have dedicated company-based ChatGPT or something, then maybe a different story. But that data is bound by some terms and conditions, I hope. So, but the other thing you mentioned that AI is evolving and there are a lot of uncertainties. More uncertainty means we have to do more risk management.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. As things continue to evolve and AI takes different shapes, it has new capabilities. I think that risk management has to be at the forefront of that and constantly updated. If, let's say, Claude or Chat come out with a new capability and your organization is using it, that's something that needs to be at the forefront of your discussion and not something that you wait to see what happens.
And risk is not only negative, it can be positive as well. When this AI is bringing new opportunities, you can do the very big job in very short time. We'll, of course, you put all the due diligence around, making sure the right information is there, checking it. That can be another thing. What opportunity is bringing? And as a person working as a project program manager, many people losing job not because organization can do better without you, because they don't see you as this AI trained. He said they got rid of some of the people because they don't see them as AI trainable. You need to be more and more understanding what AI and how can I learn various things from AI point of view, and how can I do my job better, utilizing some tools, techniques. It's all about efficiency. Business is all about efficiency. Can I bring more efficiency using the tools? So one of the things you like to do, I mean, actually my next webinar, which is on 3rd of September, is planned around AI. So around AI in project management, so everybody knows about this. I will be raising the invites next week. So join that program. It's going to be a very interesting discussion around AI and CPMA. So that will be it. Anything else you'd like to add?
I think if people were to take one thing from this, I would say when it comes to uncertainty versus risk, you want to make uncertainty the first question. Don't hyperfixate on what could go wrong, but start asking what you can't afford to be wrong about. And that question will turn a vague worry into something that you can actually act on.
And if you're interested in some of my programs, take a note, screenshot, please go through that list. We're starting CPMI programs. So a number of programs are already published for September, October, and more are coming. And the bit.ly links, you can simply type PgMP, PfMP online or PfMP classes. You can get them. Okay. Take a screenshot. And if you want to stay connected, this is my personal number. You can WhatsApp me or call me. Of course, you have to be careful about when I'm in the class or something. But you can always leave message. And some other ways you can connect. You can stay connected. Okay. And thank you. Thank you, all of you, for your participation, active participation, and your questions, your chat, all made this discussion great. More questions, you participated, more questions was great. And Eli, I can thank you. You have been wonderful. You shared your thoughts and your experience and made this conversation more interesting. So
Oh, thank you. I'm smiling ear to ear. Thank you for having me.
I appreciate your contribution. I'm sure that everybody is will appreciate it. Thank you guys for your appreciation. This will be on YouTube, and I will share the link with you guys. Feel free to share with other friends and let them learn from the discussion. And I do have 2 YouTube channels, more than 350 recordings like this on one of the channel, and more than 100 recording in a podcast channel where discussion with Thomas Valente and Justin Buckwalter all can help you, all freely available, no charges. And rather, you can earn some videos from some of these programs. All right. With this, I think this is time for us to say bye. And I will see you guys, most of you, or you will see me very soon, 3rd of September, with another great personality. All right. Take care. See you again. See you. Bye.
Bye, everyone.